Hey everybody, how y'all doing this morning? I'm back at work. My vacation came to an end. Tell you the truth, I kept working on my vacation. I had some research I had to polish up and finish up on and really dig into. Now, I think you guys are going to like what I came up with. I finished up my research on the significance of this particular mine. Okay? And so now that I've wrapped it up, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you exactly what I found. Okay? So what I'm going to be doing, the particular pioneers that actually worked on this mine and actually found it. But this is much more than a mine, much more. This has got some history. I'm going to break it all down for you right now. Okay? I think you're going to like what I came up with. Now, and on top of that, these guys who did this have a story. The sad part about it, their story can't be told because nobody knows who they were. I couldn't find names. And also I dug really deep in my research and I went back to old records of claims that were made up here during the gold rush. And I could not find one claim that was filed on this particular gold mine. Okay? On this big mountain, it stretches all the way from here to there. It's from by east to by west. And I did find there's 3 other gold mines that are registered. They were on file. Claims were made. I know who they were. This particular mine, because of the fact there was no claim filed, there is no records. So as far as anybody knows, this does not exist. Okay? And further I went into my research, I found some other significance of this, and guess what? I was correct. This is a solution cave. And are you ready for this? This is natural. The pioneers that came up here and started mining this, from what I can tell and through my investigation of my research, they were shocked what they found. They had to be. You see, because it's natural. There was no kind of dynamite. Any kind of black powder was used on this whatsoever, you see, because it's a natural solution cave. When the inlet, that is a natural made inlet, okay? If you did use any black powder on the inside, the whole ceiling would cave in on you. You'd go to your death, period. So they didn't use any powder. What they did use was hard labor, picks and shovels. Now, what was the other significance? Because this is natural, okay? When you find any kind of a solution cave or any kind of a subterranean inlet, the first thing you should find, you will find the inlet itself, which is this behind me. That is the entrance. When you go inside, you should find an open cavern area, a cavity, which this has. Now, how old is this natural cavern? I calculated it's around 147 to 150,000 years old. You got it. Around 147 to 150,000 years old. And I was correct on the date of the excavation of the inlet would have taken place around 1850. It makes about 150 years old. Now, the good significance of that is this. This has only been exposed for 150 years old, but it's about 150,000 years old. At one time, this was under the ocean until the oceans receded and exposed itself. Okay? It takes water and waterways to create a natural inlet for a subterranean environment. Okay? And that's what we have here. So then it came to the time period where it was totally exposed, the ocean went away and dried up, and this is what we got today. All right? So, it's a lot of significance. In other words, this natural cavern is prehistoric. So, now, I'm going to tell you the story real quick of these pioneers that we don't know. They can't tell their story, so I'm going to tell it for them. Okay? Now, here's how it probably happened. I believe there had to have been at least 3 to 4 pioneers got together. Obviously they had money, so they had income to invest into mining for gold. Now, once they got up here, and mind you, in that time period, around 1849, 1850, these mountains were full of miners. Actually, they were pioneers. Once they started mining, then you become a miner. Okay? So these pioneers, the first place they had to stop off was a town, it was a mining town that was built in the late 1800s, and it was called Deadwood. Now, on the outskirts of Deadwood was numerous gold mines were in operation, okay? Now, Deadwood is a place where you would pick up your supplies and such, okay? Now, at that particular time period, around 1840, let's say around 1848, 1849, what came through here was barely what you would call a path. It was barely wide enough for a man to walk through, or by horse, or by pack mule. You couldn't bring wagons up here at the time, and they had to have a trail blazed for their wagons. So, around 1848 to 1849, they commissioned a lieutenant from the Army Engineer Corps, and they commissioned him to blaze a trail for wagons. And he did within 2 years, which was a phenomenal time period to get the job done by all standards of today. So now they can get the wagons up here. So they stop at Deadwood. They pick up their supplies. And then while you're in Deadwood, you're going to mingle around with the other pioneers and other miners, and you're going to kind of ask questions of where maybe I could find gold. They try to acquire as much information as they can. So they get their supplies, they get what they need to do, whatever information they need to hold on to, and they come up this direction, okay? Now the guys got up to this point. Now there was another mining town, and I believe they were actually heading to this other mining town, which was called Last Chance. Last Chance had several gold mines in operation there too, okay? Although it was a smaller mining town than Deadwood. But I believe they were on their way to Last Chance. When they got to this point here, because this is all solid mountain, and they got to this point here, and my guess is probably one of them maybe had enough knowledge to know what you would need to find gold. In other words, you have to have, it's got to be near water. You should have some source of iron. And with those particular elements, usually you're going to find some gold. So, I believe they came by this mountain. As they were going past, they stopped about midpoint, which is where I'm at. They observed the mountain, and then they said, this is where we stake our claim. So, right in this area, right by the cameraman, is where they actually staked their camp. So they made camp, staked their claim, but they did not file the claim. Okay? It was not filed. So now this becomes a miner camp. Now they're not pioneers no more, they're miners. Okay? Now what happened is they start excavating into here. And as you could tell, this is all soil. And it goes right up here. Now what they did, where the cameraman is, from the inlet, is about 50 feet. They had to tunnel in 50 feet. They didn't use powder. You couldn't. Shovel and picks. So they dug in here and made a tunnel. They got in probably about this far. And as you can tell, it's going up. And of course, I'm a lot taller than the average man was in that time period. The average man in that time period was about 5'6", 5'7". Not like the Hollywood movies, everybody's 6 foot plus. Not true. Anyway, so they took all the soil out. As they excavated the soil, and this is why I know there had to have been a group of 3 or 4 men, okay? It took 2 to do the excavating. The other 1 or 2 would take the excess soil and utilize it, in which they did. They created a ramp. So now they could bring their wagon up, where they could load the ore into it, okay? Now, we're down to this. What happened to the miners, and why did they abandon the mine? Because it's abandoned. Now, there's 3 scenarios. I got 3 scenarios for you. Now, out of the 3 scenarios, 1 is definitely what happened. Scenario number 1. They found gold. And that's why they put the steel cage in there, was to lock it up when they weren't working. If they were away from the mine, you see, they had to leave to get supplies now and then. And on top of that, because of the fact that they didn't file a claim in that time period, if you filed a claim, that protected you by the law would protect your rights, that's your property, okay? In other words, you didn't have to worry about a claim jumper. You see, back in that time period, if you did not file your claim and register it, it was anybody's claim. Other pioneers could come up by gunpoint and take your shit away from you. And there's nothing you could do about it because they didn't break the law. So, in reality, by filing your claim, the law would protect you and give you your rights, see? So it was a smart thing to do, it was to file your claim. In this case, they didn't. Now, what were the 3 scenarios? They invested, they had money to invest, this is for sure. It costs money. It costs money to put those steel bars up in there, all right? Now, scenario number 1, they found gold, they tapped it out, there was no more to tap out of the mountain, so they abandoned it. That's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2, they worked the mine and worked it hard. These guys busted their butts, I'm telling you. And came up with nothing. No gold. They abandoned the mine. Last scenario, the 3rd. You ready for this? Maybe, just maybe these miners were scared to death out of here. Maybe that's why they abandoned it. You see, there are all these mountains up here. Sierra Sasquatch lives and has been here for a long, long time. Through these mountains, me and G, we've documented what we experienced. And quite a few times we've had personal accounts looking right at them. They're here. They have been here. The Native Americans, the tribes, one tribe was right down over here, bottom of that canyon across that river. They knew they were here. But you want to know something? The miners didn't. So, that third scenario is a very possibility that the Sierra Sasquatches living in the area did not like what they were doing, and it probably upset them. These guys up here are different from the other ones on the other side of the Sierras. These guys up here are kind of aggressive. They could have gotten really aggressive with them, could have put them through some horrific nights, and ultimately plain chased them out of here. They abandoned the mine. Now, if you think that can't happen, you better think twice, okay? Because I'm going to tell you what. There was a miner named Fred Beck. He had a gold mine. I believe it was in the state of Washington. He worked the mine, I believe it was between 1926 and 1929. Well, everything was going really fine for Fred Beck and his mining crew until one particular night. They had finished up evening crew working the mine. They went to the mine shack and they all were getting some rest for the night. And you know what happened? For the next 24 hours of their lives, they went through the most horrific, nightmarish time any human being could experience. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know exactly what was happening. All they knew is they heard something upright. Many of them walking around the shack. Debris was being thrown at them. And then the yells and the screams all night. The next morning when the sun came up, Fred Beck and his crew stepped outside the shack, walked around the property to see what exactly went on that night. You know what they found? Numerous, and I mean numerous, footprints. Large, big footprints. They found debris all around the shack. Anything from tree limbs, branches, rocks, anything they could have thrown as a projectile. You want to know something? They abandoned the mine. They never came back to work. Never worked the mine again. So, that was Fred Beck. That is a documented true story. So, if you don't think the third scenario here could not have happened, guess again. So, right now what I'm going to do, and you guys could pick whatever scenario you thought happened here. Now, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going in a little deeper in here. I'm going to take another video. I got to study it one last time because then after that, we're going to finish this up. We're going to see what's happening. Okay? So guys, I'm going to let you go right now. Give me a couple minutes. I'll be right back with you. I got to get prepped for this stuff. Okay? So right now, I'll catch you later. A few minutes. Okay? Bye.